Hey guys, I'm here to run you through a little bit of coal assignment on Surfer. Just run through what I've got up to today. So, open up Surfer and let's get into it. So in Surfer we need to load our data, which we've already composited and validated. So go to grid, data. I have my data in a different place. Where the fuck is it? Fuck. Up there. Here we go. Coal assignment. Composited data. So I'm using Surfer 11, so it'll probably look a bit different to the Surfer we have in the labs. Change your X, Y, Z so it matches up with your spreadsheet. So X you want your eastings, your Y you want it to be your northings, and last column make it a height. So the collar RL, that's the height in meters from the Earth's surface relative to something, I don't know what it is. Then you want to change the name of the output, call it our new grid. So we'll call this easting northing collar grid. So now we have a grid. Next thing we need to change, very important, is the limits on the X and the Y. So if we go back to the actual assignment where we're given the information, we scroll down and I say data available includes borehole coordinates and coal quality analysis. The lease boundaries are 2600 to 3200 north, 7900 to 8150 east. This is very important because if we go back to Surfer, in Surfer the boundaries are a little bit different, and if we use the boundaries that the Surfer's just put on, that's just taking the boundaries to where the boreholes are. And when we try and find the coal outcrop, we won't actually see the outcrop because the outcrop happens right at the end of the lease. So we need to change these limits to the lease boundaries, which were, so I'll just change, that should go to 2632, that's 32, and that should be 26. So essentially lengthened the X and the Y direction. I'll just do the X, 79 to 81.5. 71, 81.5. 815. Okay, so grid line geometry is fine. We've changed it to the lease boundaries. We've got our X, Y, Zs. Creating, just need to change the name of the grid, which we already have. So we're ready to make a grid. No need for a grid report. Sweet, we've got our grid. Now we're almost ready to plot something. First plot I want to do is a 3D surface of the surface layer and then the coal layer, so we can find out where it outcrops. So we need to make another couple of grids for that. We need to make a grid for the surface, which we already have, but we need to make another grid for the coal layer. So go back to data, go into composited data, and now we're going to choose different Z. So we're going to use top of coal. So top of coal is distance from the top of the drill hole to where the coal seam starts. I made a column in my spreadsheet of composited data for top of coal. So I've got that down here. So I've got eastings, northings, top of coal. Change the name, easting, northing, top of coal. Save that grid. Again, need to change the limits. It's really annoying, but I'm just going to have to keep doing this. It's probably an easy way to do it, just haven't figured it out yet. What the fuck were they? 79. So you're going to have to keep doing this every time you make a new grid. Just got name suite, easting, northing, TOC. Alright, so now we've got our TOC grid. So you got top of the surface, and then top of the coal seam. But top of the coal that's just giving us like meters down from the collar. We want to know what that height is in RL. So height above the surface. So we're going to have to minus top of coal from surface, and that'll give us the RL height of top of coal, which will be easier for us to plot. So we'll go math, input grid. We'll add our collar and our top of coal. And we're going to do A minus B, so the collar minus the top coal. And this will be collar minus top coal. So what it actually is the RL of top coal. So sweet. So now we've got our grid for the top of coal. We should do the same for the bottom of coal. So to find the bottom of coal, go down from the collar, down the drill hole to top of the coal. Then we've got the thickness, and then we've got the bottom of coal layer. So we want to find the height of the bottom of coal layer in RL. So we'll make a grid for the bottom thickness first. So go to our composite data. Change our Z is going to be thickness. Then least boundaries have to change. Very important they're consistent, otherwise when you add the different maps or contour things together, it won't work. It won't link up. So this grid is going to be called easting, northing, thickness. Our three variables. Sweet. So we got that, and now we're going to have to do another calculation to get the RL of the bottom of coal. So we'll go grid to math function. We're going to need our collar, and we're going to need our thickness and our top of coal. So we'll do top of coal A minus the top of distance to the top of the coal. Hold on, A collar minus top of the coal minus thickness, which is C. And we'll do that as collar minus, oh well, let's just call it the relative height of bottom of coal. There we go. So now we've got that. So now we're ready to actually plot these three things together. So we're going to go map, new, 3D surface. We're going to do the collar first, easting, northing collar grid. Open it up. Let's zoom in. So you just highlight it, and then you click this one, pick the window, zooms right in onto this. So that's our top layer of the surface. Now we want to add another layer, so map, add, 3D surface layer. Now we're going to take the relative height of the top of coal. So this is going to give us our coal layer. So we've seen the coal layer come on. Still black, so you can't really see it, but I'm going to tweak that in a second. And then add our last layer, bottom of coal. So again, add 3D surface layer, relative height, bottom of coal. So now I've got my three layers. Now I can tweak around with it, change colours. So I'll go to the collar first. and let's change it to like red. Lighting will change as well. We'll change the ambient light, make it a bit brighter. Specular will make that pretty bright too. We also want to play around with position, where the light's coming from, which will just help us get the shadows on that surface. At the moment the surface looks pretty flat even though it's not. So I start off with vertical, take it up, something like that. We're starting to see something at the end, and then we'll change the horizontal bit. Now we'll start to see a little bit of what's happening there. So that's our top layer. Let's make a green surface. Yeah, it's all vegetated, I guess. Our coal layer, make it a little bit lighter, make it like a light grey, 90% black, and then we'll make the bottom coal, yeah, black. Okay. So I'll spin this around, and we'll be able to see a little bit better what's happening. Yeah. So you see here we got our surface, coal, top of coal, bottom of coal. That surface layer's got a different colour underneath it. Let's change that. We'll make it just a grayscale, or maybe we can get a green scale. Land, perfect. And then change our coal layer. Let's see if we can get this. We'll just make grayscale. Same for our bottom one. Underside of it, grayscale. Can't really see that anyway, but okay. So that's what it looks at, our 3 coal layers. The outcrop, I'm not really seeing. It's not good. Let's just pause for a second while I figure this out. Okay, so I figured out what happened. When I was entering the new boundaries for the lease, so changing the grid, I accidentally wrote 71 for the northern instead of 79. So what's happened is, this is actually where everything's going on. That's all our surface, yada yada. Because it got 71, it just extended that flat surface all the way out here where there's nothing going on. So I need to make new grid files and just double check the lease boundaries again, make sure I didn't make any typos with it. So I'll do that and pause and come back to that in a sec. Alrighty, so I figured out what was wrong. I've changed my grids so that I'm on the lease boundaries and everything's fixed up. So if we have a look at this 3D map, go right up to the surface, we can see where the coal outcrops. So in this map I've made green the surface, top of coal light grey, bottom of coal dark grey, and yes, you see that top of coal, the light grey layer, just intersecting with the end of the lease boundary on the north side, and that's where the outcrop is. So there you have the 3D map. A few things to change, just to make it a little bit more presentable. Click on the map, we're going to change the axes, give them some labels. So left axis, which is this one over here, that would be 32 to 26 as the northings. So we'll call that the northings. Not the axis, bottom axis, that's easting in meters. And then our left axis is northing in meters. So now we've got our northing. I'll zoom out a bit so you can see that. So I got my northing, my easting. I'll probably offset that northing just to shift it down, make it look a little bit nicer. Either way. And I'll offset it out so it doesn't look as cluttered. Do the same with bottom, easting. I reckon that's about right in the middle. And I'll just offset it out a little bit. Looks neater. And I'll flip those numbers as well. Oh, easting, that's fine. There we go. Flip them around there to 270. Perfect. So I got my numbers looking nice, got my labels looking nice. Schmick diagram right now. Moving on. So that's plot 1. Let's save it. So that would be 3D surface and coal seam. Let's make a new plot. So our second plot, this is going to be a wireframe of thickness times depth, and we're going to show where the boreholes are on that. Maybe we just do surface first and then we do the boreholes. So I'm going to make a new wireframe, and I'm going to be using the surface. I'm using the collar. There I have my wireframe. Again, change the labels while we're here. So bottom is going to be our easting in meters, and we're going to offset, change the angle of those labels so the numbers are all easy to read. Offset this around a bit. Same deal with our northing in meters. Send it down a bit and offset out. Beautiful. So we've got our wireframe, we've got our labels. It's looking pretty nice. Next thing to do is add those drill holes on top so we can see where our drill holes are with respect to the surface map. So we click on the map and we're going to add a layer. We're going to add a post layer. Click our data, that comes up. That's not good. Let's just see what it does. Okay, so post layer now. Over on the left hand side, X coordinates hole ID, that's not right. Y coordinates easting. The Y should be northing. The X should be easting. And the label we want is the hole ID. Now the hole ID is coming on, but it still looks pretty hard to see because they're written right on the surface. So we want a line sticking up, then the label of it onto it. So 3D length, the leader line, make them stick out. It's pretty cool because they actually look like drill holes now. So we'll make them stick out a fair bit. Maybe we should change the colours, make them a little bit more visible. I'll make mine blue. And those labels still a bit hard to read, so we're going to change those labels. Label position, let's make it to the right. That still looks pretty crap, doesn't it? Let's play around with that. Label plane, screen, so now we can see it. They're pretty big. I'll make them, that's about nice. And position of those labels, yeah, that's still right, yeah, that's looking better. We'll just change it, flip our map, move it around so we can just start to see it a bit more. There we go. I can't see these ones yet, so I want to crank it up a bit. Spin it. Yep, so I can see 1269 and I can see 637 quite nicely. Only problem is I can't see my northing eastings. So I'll keep it like that, and I'll just have to extend out my 3D labels a little bit more. Yeah, that's nice. These ones a bit clustered, this one's a bit clustered. So again, I'll just change the angle a little bit more. Alright, I think I might actually be able to custom change some of these numbers, like move these specific labels like to the left or something like that, just so it's easy to see. I'll take a break and I'll see if I can do that. So as far as I can tell, you can't actually select the individual labels and then change the position of individual labels. So I'll just have to live with those two labels there being close together and looking quite clustered. So yeah, that's our wireframe with our drill holes listed into it. We'll save that as wireframe with drill holes. Sweet. So that's pretty much as far as I got up to this morning. I'll post another video up if I get any more progress. I hope that helps. Cheers.